Most people believed the end of the world would begin with fire, earthquakes, or war. But one of history's greatest disasters began in complete silence. There was no warning, no massive explosion, no army marching across the horizon, just a sun that looked slightly different. At first, nobody questioned it because life continued as it always had. Farmers worked their fields, merchants opened their shops, and children played in the streets. Yet with each passing day, the sunlight grew weaker, the air became colder, and something invisible was quietly changing the world. Within only a few months, crops began to fail. Hunger spread across entire regions, and millions of people found themselves trapped inside a disaster they could neither understand nor escape. Today, historians recognize this moment as the beginning of one of the darkest years in human history, the year 536 AD. For the people who lived through it, there was no scientific explanation and no way to understand what was happening. They could only watch as the seasons stopped behaving the way they always had. Summer no longer felt like summer. Harvests became smaller with each passing year, and food that had once been plentiful slowly disappeared from villages and cities alike. Ancient writers describe the sun as giving off its light without its usual brightness, almost as if the world had been covered by a thin veil that never lifted. Day after day, the sky looked strangely pale. Temperatures continued to fall, and fear began to replace hope. What seemed like a simple change in the weather was, in reality, the beginning of a global catastrophe, unlike anything people had ever experienced. For centuries, nobody knew what had caused the sky to change. Some believed it was a message from God. Others thought the world itself was coming to an end. And many simply accepted that they were powerless against whatever had happened. Without modern science, every explanation sounded just as believable as the next. It wasn't until nearly 1,500 years later that researchers began uncovering the truth. Deep beneath the ice of Greenland and Antarctica, scientists discovered tiny layers of volcanic ash trapped inside ancient glaciers, preserving a record of events that had taken place more than a millennium earlier. Those frozen clues pointed to something extraordinary, a massive volcanic eruption so powerful that it may have filled the atmosphere with enough ash and sulfur to block sunlight across much of the planet. If that theory was correct, then the darkness people witnessed in 536 AD wasn't a legend at all. It was the aftermath of one of the largest natural disasters in recorded history. But there was one question that scientists still couldn't answer. Where had the eruption actually happened? The evidence hidden inside ancient ice confirmed that enormous amounts of volcanic material had entered the atmosphere. Yet, it didn't reveal the exact location. For years, researchers searched for the source, comparing ash samples, studying geological records, and examining volcanoes across the world. Several locations emerged as possible suspects. Some studies pointed toward Iceland, where powerful eruptions have changed the climate before. Others suggested North America, while more recent research indicates that a massive tropical volcano may have been responsible. Even today, scientists continue debating the exact location, but they agree on one crucial fact. Whatever erupted was powerful enough to affect the climate of the entire planet. The people living in 536 AD had no idea that a volcano, possibly thousands of kilometers away, had silently transformed their world. As the months passed, the consequences became impossible to ignore. Crops that had fed entire communities simply failed to grow. Livestock began to die as grazing land disappeared, and food became more valuable than many people had ever imagined. Families who had once lived comfortably suddenly found themselves struggling to survive. In many regions, hunger spread faster than anyone could stop it. Villages were abandoned, long journeys in search of food became increasingly common, and desperate people were forced to make impossible choices just to stay alive. What had begun as a strange change in the sky was now turning into a humanitarian disaster that stretched across continents. For those living through it, the darkness was no longer just above their heads. It had entered their homes, their fields, and their daily lives, leaving behind fear, uncertainty, and a future that seemed to grow darker with every passing season. The worst part was that the disaster didn't end when the sky began to clear. Years of poor harvests had already weakened entire populations, leaving millions of people exhausted, undernourished, and vulnerable. Then, just as the world was beginning to recover, another catastrophe arrived. In the year 541 AD, a deadly disease swept through the Byzantine Empire before spreading across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Today, it is known as the Justinian Plague, one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. Historians believe that the famine and economic collapse following the events of 536 may have made its impact even more devastating, as weakened communities had little chance of resisting a rapidly spreading infection. What had started with a darker sky had now become decades of suffering, proving that a single natural event can change the course of human civilization for generations. For more than 1,000 years, the events of 536 AD remained little more than a mystery recorded in ancient texts. Many historians accepted the stories, but no one could prove exactly what had happened. That changed when modern science began uncovering evidence hidden deep within nature itself. By studying ice cores drilled from Greenland and Antarctica, scientists discovered microscopic layers of volcanic sulfate that had been trapped for centuries. At the same time, tree rings from different parts of the world revealed an unusual pattern of extremely slow growth, showing that temperatures had fallen dramatically for several years. When these discoveries were compared with historical records, they all pointed to the same conclusion. The darkness described by ancient writers was not a myth, an exaggeration, or a legend. It was a real global climate disaster, preserved in both history and the Earth itself. Could it happen again? The answer is yes. Powerful volcanic eruptions are still capable of sending enormous amounts of ash and sulfur high into the atmosphere, reducing sunlight and disrupting the global climate. While modern technology, agriculture, and international trade would help us respond far better than people could 1,500 years ago, a disaster on that scale would still affect food supplies, transportation, economies, and the lives of billions of people around the world. The year 536 reminds us that even the most advanced civilizations remain connected to the forces of nature. Sometimes, history isn't changed by kings, armies, or revolutions, but by events that begin thousands of kilometers away, hidden beneath the Earth's surface, without a single person realizing what is about to happen. For centuries, the people who lived through those dark years never understood why their world had changed. Today, we finally know the answer. And perhaps the greatest lesson they left behind is that nature doesn't need to be loud to change the course of human history. Sometimes, all it takes is a quieter sun,